as long as they're ready. Paul, can you hear me?
No, Paul's frozen. Paul's gone.
Poor Paul.
Ann there? No, she's frozen, so it's us frozen.
We do.
Okay, I guess we're on online. So I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting in the town of Westville to order. Going to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we are all treaty people, so we work towards reconciliation. Also acknowledge the contributions, legacies, and histories of the African Nova Scotia people who've been here for over 400 years. And with that, I think we're going to be ready. The main item on our agenda tonight, and only item on the agenda as far as I know, is the presentation from Property Services Valuations. And I think we have Paul Beasley.
No, I have no.
We do not have Paul Beasley. We lost our
Live and we don't have.
we lost our presenter, so we'll just wait a moment till we have that.
I will shift over to show that as opposed to us all sitting here. But I guess there's nobody able to see anything, right, if you don't have internet?
Right.
Until I get.
Yeah, this should have worked. It's the internet.
We're having trouble with the internet.
Yeah.
That's our difficulty.
There we are.
Paul,
I got kicked off. There we go.
all right, we're gonna try to go. You might have to speak really fast, Paul, before we lose you. Can you hear us?
Do you have us back, Kristen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear me, Paul? Paul, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
A little bit light, but I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, very good. It's Lenny White, by the way. Paul is a former municipal politician, former mayor of the town of Windsor, the former town of Windsor. You're a former everything, Paul. So he's got lots.
I'm just a former Mayor White. That's about the best way to describe it.
Yeah. It comes with lots of experience from the municipal perspective, which I think is to our advantage in the current role that you have with Property Value Services, Paul, because you, better than anyone, know the implications of the assessment role for our town. So with that, the purpose is for you to present to our council sort of the tale of the tape for this year for the town of Westville, and in general, just I know about Property Value Service Corporation and the assessment business and how it works in the province in general. So I think you have somebody else with you, and I apologize, I don't know who that is.
Well, we have, I've invited Ann Smith McCory with us. She's one of our assessors.
Okay.
So I'll let Ann introduce herself here.
Hello, thanks for having us. I'm Ann Smith McCory. I am a commercial assessor. I've been with Property Valuation Services now for 12 years. I've worked in the residential and the commercial side of things. And I'm not too far away. I live in Antigonish County on the Northumberland Strait, so I'm familiar with your town and a lot of your features there and things that go on in the area.
Very good. Welcome.
So Paul, it's Scott. I've got your presentation up on the screen here so that the councilors can see it. So if you you just tell me when you want to go to the next slide, when you and Ann want to go to the next slide, and I'll be your slide advancer person.
And before you do that, Paul and Ann, I just, so that you know who's here in the room, I'll get our council, I'll introduce our council to you. And I don't know whether you can see us or not. I'm sorry, I don't understand what's happening here.
We can see you. You're very small, Your Worship.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Paul. So to my left, I have the Deputy Mayor, Mitchell McGregor. To Mitchell's left, Councillor Danielle Fraser. And down to my far right, Councillor Sarah McKinnon, and next to Sarah, Councillor Helen Dunn, sorry. Good Lord, there's more than technological difficulties here tonight. Helen Dunn, and of course you know Scott, our CAO. So with that, that's who's in the room, so you're aware. I'll turn it over to you guys.
All right.
Diane and Heather.
So Scott, will I be able to see on the screen the presentation, or shall
Yes.
I just go, I'll just sync myself with you?
Yes, yeah, you tell me when you want to move, and I'll move it for you. So I've got your,
We'll go to the first slide, Scott, which is the one about PVSC.
got it.
So, Your Worship, Council, thank you for having us here this evening. It's always a pleasure to present. I would ideally wish to be there in person. I find that I get so much more out of them in person and see you in person. But fortunately, virtual works out quite well too. So, really pleased to be here. And I guess you've probably been reading the headline, hearing the headlines about the assessment that just came out just a week ago. And there were headlines such as, the assessments surpassed 200 billion for the first time. And then there's some of the headlines were driven by increases in HRM and things like that or whatever. So the headline about the 200 billion is correct. We're at, assessments at an all-time high. However, it's not just driven by HRM this year. It's driven on the residential side. It seems to be driven more on those areas outside of HRM, pretty much across the province. On the commercial, I would agree, and Ann would probably agree as well, that HRM is certainly the big cog in the wheel as far as driving the commercial side. But on residential side, it's good news all the way across the province. So a little bit about property valuation services, and I'm assuming that a couple of you at least probably haven't seen a PVSC presentation before, but we were created under the Nova Scotia, or we were created under the Property Valuation Service Corporation Act, and we assess based on the Nova Scotia Assessment Act. We were once a provincial government entity at one time, till about 2000. And then we were rolled out under the Property Valuation Service Corporation Act. We deliver the assessment rolls to all 49 municipalities. This year, there were approximately 650,000 assessment notices that went out about a week ago. We're municipally funded. We're a not-for-profit corporation, and we're governed by a board of directors. The board of directors made up of elected municipal officials such as yourself. We have some municipal staff people on the board of directors. We also have private volunteers from the private sector as well, professionals that have volunteered to be on the board. We have approximately 135 employees across that work and live in 60 communities across Nova Scotia. We'll go to the next slide, Scott.
You there?
So what's next slide, okay, good.
Yep.
What we do and what we don't do. PVSC, we deliver the assessment role, as I mentioned. We administer the capped assessment program and the seasonal tourist business designation program on behalf of the province. That's provincial legislation that we administer those programs for. What we do not do, we do not have the authority to determine land ownership. That's the land registry. They have that under their responsibility. We do not set the tax rates or collect taxes or create tax policy or provide tax relief. That's all under the purview of municipal council and also in conjunction with the province. So anything to do with taxes is essentially yours under the Municipal Government Act, and anything to do with assessment is ours under the Assessment Act. Next slide, Scott. And I should say, if anybody wants to ask any questions along the way, feel free to jump in, and I'll let His Worship sort of keep that going to the best of his ability, for sure. So the next slide, we assess based on market value. We're required to under the Assessment Act. So the market value being essentially in the opinion of the assessor, what would be paid if the property was sold on a prescribed date to a willing buyer and a willing seller. So it's an arm's length, open market transaction. Not all sales are arm's length open market transactions, such as tax sales, possibly estate sales, foreclosure sales, family sales, those types of things. So we use market sale data in our analysis every year. We do not use sales which are not considered market value sales in our analysis. We also reflect on the role, the state of the property as it exists on the first day of December each year. That's called the state date. You'll see in the green box where it says state date December 1st, 2025. That is the state of the property as it stands up to and including December the 1st. And we collect data right up to that date and make sure it's included on the roll. The base date just above that in the blue box is that market valuation date. The thing to keep in mind on the base date is that we're 1 year back. Our assessments are 1 year retroactive as far as the market influences and the market value date. So the 2026 roll is based on market value leading up to January 1st, 2025. So next slide, Scott.
Yep.
Should say mass appraisal at the top.
It does.
So we use mass appraisal. It's to determine the value. In order to determine all the value across Nova Scotia, we can't go and look at all the properties across the province, so we use mass appraisal. Process of valuing a group of properties as of a given date using common data, standardized methods, and statistical testing. So property assessments are based on market evidence, on the analysis of the sales that occur. We look at sales data, we look at financial data for some of our income and value properties. So the key thing to remember here is we do not set the market. We reflect the market. We're looking backwards. We're looking at actual sales data that has occurred in the past to reflect what the assessment should look like when we create the assessment every year. So for the 2026 assessments, I mentioned that the market valuation date was a year ago. We're actually using sales evidence prior to that market valuation date. Primarily in 2024, the sales data that occurred in 2024 for the assessment roll for 2026. So we use that data right up to, basically a year before the assessment roll goes out. And we measure the accuracy and uniformity and the fairness of the assessments against the Assessment Act and against internationally accepted standards. The International Association of Assessing Officers, the IAAO, sets worldwide standards internationally and is accepted as such. We also use Appraisal Institute of Canada standards and CUSPAP, which is Canadian Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice. Next slide there, Scott. 3 approaches to determining value. We use 3 approaches. Sales comparison approach, primarily for residential sales, because there's sufficient sales data in order to use the sales approach. It's the most accepted approach to valuation. The income approach is for valuation of those properties that derive their value from the income they can produce. Things like hotels, motels, things such as strip malls that rent out space within the malls. Things such as apartment buildings who rent out apartments, and so on and so forth, office buildings. So that income, we collect that financial data every year. Hi there, Scott.
Got it?
Sales data, I mentioned sales data, and it's very important what we do. We receive property sale information from the land registry on a daily basis. We receive all of the sale transactions that occur around the province. We review all of them to see if they meet that criteria for an arm's length market sale between a willing buyer and a willing seller. And we contact property buyers and sellers. We contact real estate agents. We look at real estate listings. We'll try to determine, the data related to that property and the circumstances around that sale. And we look at all the sales. And we'll use the ones that are considered that meet that criteria for a market value transaction. We will use those in our analysis every year when we do our reassessments. So, in areas where there are few sales, some of the rural areas, or even before the pandemic, when there were fewer sales prior to that, we are required sometimes to expand the geographic area a little bit in order to get sufficient sales, in order to do our analysis. Also, we may increase the length of time that we go back. So we may need to time adjust, go back 2 or 3 years, time adjust them forward to make them usable sales for our analysis. So typically there's about 40,000 sales per year in Nova Scotia that we use, and that's sort of pre-pandemic. It was probably around 30,000, but the last few years it's been about 40,000 sales around the province that we use. We don't use sales for typical residential properties. We wouldn't use sales that are on the other side of the province or a distance away. We would use sales that were in the same neighborhood or close to the same neighborhood, in the same municipality, that type of thing. So just don't want you to think if we're using, say, sales in Cape Breton to compare to Westville or St. Hills and Yarmouth to compare to Westville. We'll keep it geographically centralized and use homogeneous type sales and homogeneous and similar properties in our analysis. Next slide.
Yep.
So the cap assessment program I had mentioned earlier, we administer on behalf of the province. The cap increases every year based on CPI, the Canadian Consumer Price Index, the CPI for Nova Scotia, and that's kept by StatsCan. It's advised to the province, and the province advises us what the rate is. For 2026, the cap rate is 2.6%. And just under that green bubble, you'll see the historic cap rates. So if you go right down to the bottom to 2021, the cap rate is, and the CPI cap rate interchangeably has been anywhere from 0.3% for the year up to 7.7 at the height of the pandemic, and now it's sort of reduced back to more normal levels. This year it's a little higher, 2.6%, but typically 10 years before the 10 years leading up to the pandemic, it was averaging about 1.5%. So if you look at the blue box at the sort of bottom of that screen, you'll see what typically an assessment notice would have on it as far as a residential assessment. Your constituents and probably yourself have received an assessment notice that has a box like this at the bottom of it. In this case, it's a residential property. The assessed value in that first assessment column is $226,800. That's the market value assessment based on our analysis of sales every year. The cap assessment, which is the amount that has been, if it's, in this case, it's eligible for the cap program. It looks like it's been eligible for quite some time because of a large differential between the cap assessment and the market value assessment. That cap assessment reflects the value of the property when it first entered the cap program, could have been many years ago, and then adding the CPI to it every year to get to the amount where it is now. So it gets recalculated every year as long as it's eligible.
Paul?
If you move to the right, in this residential example, the cap legislation requires that the lower of the two values is the value that's used for taxation purposes.
Paul,
Yep.
it's Lenny here. Just a quick question, seeing as we're talking about cap. You mentioned, residents that qualify for the cap. I wonder if you could just explain briefly how a resident qualifies for the cap and how one doesn't.
Well, that's a great question, and, originally, you had to apply for the cap back in the early 2000s, but in 2007, the cap legislation was changed so that anybody that's eligible for the cap automatically qualifies for the cap and is in the cap program as long as you're eligible. Now, there's a half a dozen eligibility criteria, and Ann will probably help me out with this one a little bit, but before first start is you have to be a resident of Nova Scotia. You have to live in the province for at least half of the year, and you have to own at least half of the property. Also, it cannot be a commercial entity that owns the property, so a numbered company or a business, if it owns the property, would not be eligible for the cap. I guess fundamentally, the cap value has to be lower than the market value. If it's not lower than the market value, then the cap falls away and the market value becomes the new cap. The cap is not, properties with more than 3 units or 4 units or more are not eligible for the cap. So multi-unit apartment buildings are not eligible for the cap. Condos are eligible as long as the owner resides or a family member of the owner resides in the condo. And is there anything else I'm missing that you can think of?
I think you covered it. It was the multi-unit, yeah, 3 or fewer units are eligible, like you mentioned.
Are eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that's eligible is a mobile home park. And there's special legislation that changed partway through saying that mobile home parks can be eligible. But other than that, Your Worship, I think that pretty much covers it for who can be eligible for the cap and who can't.
How does it relate to, help me with this, because I recall that there's some difference with when a property sells. What happens when a property sells?
Yes.
It's a property that was capped, for example.
Gone.
The cap is gone.
I should mention to you that you can sell the property to a family member, an immediate family member, and you can retain the cap. If you sell it to an immediate family member, the cap stays with the property. If you sell it to somebody that's not an immediate family member, you lose the cap. When you sell your property, the cap automatically will fall away. And so the new owner does not get have the benefit of the cap unless they're a family member.
Right.
So what happens is that when someone purchases a property, the land registry advises us that the transaction has occurred. The cap, we will do our analysis. We'll look at the property, we'll look at the property data, we'll make sure our data is correct. When we do our review of the property, we will update the data on the property. We will establish a new market value for that property, and the cap will come off. And the cap will not be reinstated until the following year if that property is eligible for the cap.
Right. Okay, I think that's important, Paul, that people understand that when that happens, because it happens quite often, as you know. But after the first year, then it can become eligible if the other criteria is met, correct?
They can.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, if they meet the criteria, yes. If they meet the criteria, we'll all automatically go back into the cap. And the cap is continuously being calculated in the background. But it's just a matter, if it meets all those flags for the eligibility criteria, that property will be automatically entered back into the cap system.
Thank you.
We get a lot of questions on it, Your Worship, so, and those are very good questions for sure. So we'll move on to the next slide, and we can always answer some more questions with the cap in a bit here. So let's take a look at your assessment roll and the numbers. assessment is that $308 million amount there. If you just look at the residential side, it's 282. And if you look at the residential and compare the residential with the adjusted total residential with cap, which is just below that, that's the 198 or 199 million dollar figure there. So that's what you might look at if you were wondering what's the impact of the cap on our assessment roll. So the total residential of 282 is the market value for your residential properties, residential taxable and exempt properties in the town based on the market value. Once the cap is calculated and the cap adjustments are included in the numbers, it's 198, $199 million. So that difference between the two is kind of what you might consider the cap impact over the years. That's sort of where the cap, how it affects your assessment roll. Total commercial, 25.5 million essentially. And if you also look to the right, the total right under 2022, the column 2022, and you look at your total assessment, it'll give you an idea of how assessments have changed, through that period of the pandemic. So in 2022, Westville's total assessment was $174 million. Through that pandemic, you saw it increase quite significantly, and it's not quite doubled, but you're at $308 million now. So over those 5 years, it's gone up. Well, it's almost doubled. It's gone up. Probably 80% there. So that's and that's not unusual for around the province and for towns and municipalities around the province to see that type of lift over the past 5 years. That'd be a larger lift than we would have seen the 10 or 15 years prior to that. But that's sort of that pressure and the pandemic bubble that kind of went through that cycle. So in the green box to the total right, to the right, your total taxable, that's the amount that is available in the assessment roll as at the time that we set it for 2026. That's actual taxable dollars. Doesn't include any exempt amounts. It includes taxable residential, taxable resource, and taxable commercial. And that's really what your budgets get established on. That's the real bread and butter for your budgets. So we'll go to the next slide. Some more stats. Here's qualified sales. I spoke about sales that we use to set the market values in Westville every year. You'll see again a little bit of that pandemic bubble where we started at 72 on the far left in 2022. It reached a high of 94 sales in the 2024 assessment roll year. And for the current 2026 assessment roll year, there were 61 sales that we qualified as open market transactions used in our analysis for our reassessment for the 2026 roll. These are actually sales that occurred in 2024, but we use that sales data for the 2026 roll. Next slide. Permits received. Permits been on a bit of an uptick since 2021. Typically, we would have seen permits going up during that pandemic and then coming back down again, but Westville has a little bit of a continuous upward line there, which is positive, I would say. And then finally, the next slide is appeals.
Yep.
We're from 15 to 20 appeals. The pandemic, when the values were going up so high.
Everyone appealed.
And that's dropped down to more normal levels. We had 19 appeals last year.
I'm surprised it was only 59.
Yeah.
Maybe that's percentage.
Well, on the permits, that is 2025, not as regarding sales, which is the year before 2024. Is that correct?
I didn't quite catch that.
So-
Can you just repeat it again?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't clear probably. So I know that on the qualified sales, it's actually when you're showing the 2026 number of 61, for example, sales, that really relates to 2024, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the sales that we qualified that occurred in the 2024 calendar year.
Correct. Then on the permits issued, when it says 2025-49, that is actually the calendar year, is that correct?
That's the that's the
Yeah.
calendar year. That heading at the bottom is not quite right, and you're very sharp to have picked that up. That is actually the sales that occurred through 2025. To be exact, they occurred from December the 1st of 2020, December the 1st of 2024 to November 30th of 2025. Because that's the state dates on our roll. I've spoken, I mentioned state date earlier.
State date, okay.
That's the 12 months.
Yeah, I'm not the sharpest guy in the block, but I have trouble figuring that out in my head a lot of times. I just can't keep those dates straight.
Confused now.
It's very confusing, I find. I don't know, is there a layman way to express that so that we all understand it a little clearly?
December 2024 is the only month in question of 2024 forward on those sales data.
On the sales, yeah. On the permits data, though, the permit
correct.
data, Paul, when it says 49, that was 49 dwelling, building, well, I guess any kind of building permit.
Permit.
Yeah, it would have been a permit that would have been open that we would have been dealing with during that year, any type of permit, yes. Keeping in mind, some permits span several years, but these would have been ones that we were actively working on during that year.
Right. Okay.
Clear as mud, Paul. You're doing well.
All right, we'll keep going. Only a couple left. So, the appeal process is very timely that we see this right now. People have, most residents have received their notice. They have, under the Assessment Act, the opportunity to appeal if they feel that their assessment is incorrect. And, it indicates the value on their assessment notice. So, their appeals must be received by us before February the 12th, 2026. They have 31 days to appeal, but the 31 days is based on the date that their mail is posted, like the date that the mail goes out from the post office. So they got 31 days from that date. It went out on the 12th. They have until midnight on February the 12th in order to get their appeals in. How you file the appeal is clearly noted on the appeal notice. If people want more information in regards to it, I encourage them to go to our website at www.pbsc.ca. There are 3 levels of appeal. The initial level is the PBSC assessor review. So if someone appeals, sends their notice, signs their notice, sends the appeal notice into us, then that will be included in all the appeals that we will take a look at, and we will have an assessor review that appeal. The assessor may or may not talk to the property owner, depending on sort of what they see in their review. However, they will review it. They'll make a decision as to whether that appeal should be confirmed, whether the appeal should be adjusted, or they also give the appellant or the property owner the opportunity to withdraw after we talk to them. And quite often, a property owner will withdraw once they understand exactly how we value and what goes into the valuation. If they're not satisfied after the assessor review, after that initial, to the Nova Scotia.
Oh,
We lost him.
we lost it.
No, we made it to the end.
We did actually get,
Just
like,
about,
ooh.
yeah.
Next slide, I think.
There he is.
You're back, Paul. We lost you for a moment.
Yeah, so, that's okay. So the NSAC tribunal, it sounds a bit daunting, and when they talk about hearings and NSAC court, it sounds a little intimidating, but really it's just a chairperson and the property owner and someone from assessment services, property valuation. say their piece and why they think that the value is incorrect. Property Valuation Service will say our piece, and the chairperson will decide. Typically, the chairperson is a lawyer or someone with some type of professional mediation background. And then finally, if they don't agree with the NSAT tribunal's decision, they can take it all the way to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board, which is a much more formal type of court, and gets into the sort of a more, for many, it would get into a more costly type of approach to go, but not necessarily. You can go and be your own representative at the Regulatory and Appeal Board as well, but it just gets into a little more formality, that's for sure. And I think the final slide is our contact information. And they can phone it. We encourage property owners to phone us. We encourage them to go to the website and take a look. People can email us. And you know, they can do that at any time of the year, not just during the appeal period. So we take a number of calls all through the year. During the appeal period last year, just a little tidbit of information, we responded to over 10,000 inquiries by phone and by email. That's during that 31-day period last year. And the average wait time before speaking with a PVSC staff person was 16 seconds. So we have assessors standing by.
That's pretty impressive.
On phones right through this 31-day period. Anne, are you on phones this year?
I'm not, I'm working with the people that are on phones, so deal with the
Yes.
assessors that need help, extra help.
Yes, so Ann, you know, Ann's, I'm sure, on the end of many calls from property owners over the years, and, you know, we're there, we're ready to take those calls, and we can usually, in the vast majority of cases, property owners will understand, you know, you know, how we value and what goes into their assessment, and we really do encourage them to contact us before they, you know, before they appeal, before they go to NSAT, that type of thing, definitely.
Right. Excellent. Can we take the slides
Anything you
down?
want to add, Ann? Anything that jumped
No,
out?
I think it's covered well, what you've given.
I'll throw it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Paul. Just going to throw it open to council to any questions or comments that they have for you. If council is ready, anything that anyone wants to ask further about or clarification? Oh, you did a good job, Paul, because they're all nodding their heads like in agreement and so on.
Can I, Your Honor,
Go,
can I
go,
ask one?
and our CAO, though, can ask as well.
I was just wondering, Paul, whether residents have to select from the 3 levels of appeal, or do they just progress through those automatically? So if you say you want to appeal, you automatically get the initial assessor review, and then you progress through those as long as you're saying, no, I don't agree, I disagree. Is that right?
I didn't pick up the first part because you were breaking up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll try again.
But
I was wondering whether, I was wondering whether a resident progresses naturally through all 3 levels of appeal. So they appeal, they get the initial assessor review, and then as long as they keep saying I'm dissatisfied, they progress automatically to the next level. They don't have to select which level of appeal they want at the front end, do they?
You can't go.
yeah, it kind of progresses along the way so that, yeah, they have the opportunity to take it to the next level if they so desire. They don't need to pick one level at any one particular time, but you wouldn't start by going right to the end, into the utility review board. They would need to see, I think, a ruling from the NSAT court before you took it to them, I would think.
Okay,
Does
thank
that
you.
one right in?
Yeah.
The one question that I have would be with regarding our 2026 assessment, residential in particular, and how, I guess this is a difficult question to ask, and you probably don't have an answer, but I'll ask it anyway. How it relates to other communities of similar size with regard to assessments. You know, we're a community of 1,700 dwellings approximately, plus or minus, right? How does that, you know, is there any idea to compare it? We've always had the assumption that our assessments in Westville, well, the reason I'm asking that, we've always had the assumption, and I've heard it many times myself, and maybe I've said it myself on occasion, that our assessments are lower than other areas of even Pictou County, of other towns or similar sized towns, I guess is what I'm saying. Any way of us looking at that to see if that's fact or fiction?
Well, there was some stats that we did send out, I believe we sent them all out to the municipality as well. It's called our media kit every year.
Okay.
I'm sure it's on our website as well, and it gives the assessment amounts for all the municipalities.
Okay.
So was there one in particular
No,
right here, right?
Yeah, no, Paul, I off the top of my head, I don't, to be honest. But you know, that's just something, we can look at that. I appreciate that. If we know where it is, we can find it for sure. We'll have a look at that. I won't bother with that now.
I think provincially, the residential file or the residential assessments were up about 8.5%.
Okay.
Provincially.
Yes,
That's residential.
right.
Now, if you looked at those numbers, and I have the number here, the residential assessment lift for Westville was 9.8% this year,
9.8.
and that's 9.8%
Yeah.
this year.
And the provincial,
The
yeah, sorry,
The overall province was 8.5.
Correct.
If you outpaced HRM, like I mentioned, that residential outside of HRM was typically higher this year than HRM was. That's the ripple effect.
yeah,
I call it the ripple effect from the pandemic, is that people are looking for affordable housing. And you can't find it in HR, it's very difficult to find in HRM now, so they're looking outward. And
Yep.
communities across Nova Scotia are seeing this sort of movement and market value increases in properties as people try to find affordable housing as
Right.
well, so.
yeah,
So the smaller communities, the towns that have, as far as assessment performance or assessment lift this year, have been a little higher than what it would be typically in other years, notwithstanding the peak of the pandemic, that's for sure, but.
it's a very interesting point, though.
I was just trying to find a municipality here that, I'm just trying to flip through a little bit here and find one that might be, similar. And, like, I've got New Glasgow, I've got County of Pictou, I've got, Town of Pictou,
Yep.
residential assessment, 297.5 million. Compared to yours, which was, when I had it up on the screen
28.
here,
282.8.
308. Oh, that's total assessment. So your total residential was 282, and town of Pictou is 297.
Our
Our total assessment roll is 382 versus your,
308.
let me see, yours would be 333 approximately. With commercial and no, it'd be 308, so your total 308, so.
Right.
Theirs is higher, probably a higher commercial base.
Right.
maybe in the town, I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things that jumps off the page, obviously, is on the commercial assessments, is that ours is flat. You know, it's been flat since 2022. The numbers that you gave us, there's been no change virtually to speak of. So, you know, it gives us an incentive to concentrate and work towards increasing that somehow. It's a vital importance to the town moving forward. The other thing is that I was going to ask her a comment, I guess, is that it appears to me that the gap between the actual market value assessment residential and the gap is increasing as as that number goes up, the gap and the cap increases as well. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what we do about that. Nothing we can do about it, I guess.
They're frozen. Going to watch the Leafs or something.
So we've lost your volume, Paul. I don't know if you can hear us, but we've lost your volume.
Okay.
There you go, yeah.
Hearing me right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
hear you a bit better now.
I'll try to go a little slower, but, yeah, the CPI versus the market value change has been wider through that pandemic period. So as long as the market value is increasing more than what the consumer price index is, that gap is going to continue to
Right.
increase.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not a, you know, it's a good thing to see it going up. That's, I guess we can take that as a positive, obviously. And there's a lot of good information there, you know, beyond even what you said. And I should have said in the beginning that, you know, we broadcast our meetings on YouTube. We are on our Westville, Town of Westville YouTube channel. And so there will be people that will make themselves available, I hope, and perhaps, you know, people have watched us live tonight, but we'll also be able to go in and, you know, we'll encourage them to look at this presentation if they have questions around the whole process, right? So that's the value of this. We're going to reach a lot more people than you've just reached by talking, you know, to the 7 of us in the room here.
I think, Your Worship, that's exactly why the timeliness is perfect. Because I know from my previous experience that your counselors will get stopped on the corner.
Right.
Get stopped in the grocery store, get stopped at the post office, and these questions will be asked of them. So
Right.
I think the main thing is to keep our 1-800 number close at hand. And certainly, you know, if it's a question that you don't feel that you can answer, or the person wants more information, please, by all means, share with them our 1-800 number or our website,
We
or
will.
any way to get them in contact with us.
Really appreciate that. We'll certainly do that, and we'll also, as I said, to refer them to this YouTube presentation if they want to see some things that we can't answer, or save them the call, perhaps. So, you know, I don't know, anybody have anything else for Paul or Ann? Okay, well, we really appreciate the presentation, Paul and Ann. Thank you for your time, and we'll be seeing you, I'm sure, around the province in the near future, if not during the next year. And if we have questions, we know where to find you. So we appreciate that.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Your Worship. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ed.
Good evening.
Okay, I guess with that, that's the only item I think that we had on our agenda this evening. So I will call or declare the meeting adjourned.